Have you heard about the term imposter syndrome? And you're probably wondering, do I have it? When does it attack me? When do I experience imposter syndrome? And do I handle it well? Well, I'm going to help you answer that question. Actually, not me. My guest is Dr. AJ Laura, and she is going to help us answer that question today. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome and its impact on resilience. Now, as you know, we here at the Resilience Catalyst Show talk about the importance of resilience and how resilience happens in 9 dimensions. It is not something that you wait until you fall down to start building, but that you start building as a system so that when life happens, you don't fall down as hard or crash as hard. You have something to start getting yourself back together and start moving through life because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And as the Resilience Catalyst podcast and your Resilience Catalyst here, I am so excited. My name is Joyce Odidison. If it's the first time you're tuning in, and I'm so excited to tell you why your resilience is your currency for life. We teach the currency of resilience because we know that if you're lacking this currency, life is going to be very, very tough for you. And I love you. I want you to have the best life. This is why we put so much work and energy into bringing you great guests and great topics. So this morning, I want to invite our guest and tell you a little bit more about Dr. Laura because she is Dr. AG Laura. I'm renaming her. Sure, she doesn't want a new name, but here I am again, giving her the name she didn't ask me for. So let me tell you a little bit about her. And she regularly coaches professionals at the executive level on how to create more inclusive and productive workplaces. Her one-on-one clients have held leadership roles at places like Amazon, Stitch Fix, Ohio State University, Cornell University, and the likes. So she has worked with professionals who we think should have it all, but they are facing resilience issues and obviously some kind of imposter syndrome. Let's ask her and invite her to the conversation and ask her to tell us a little bit about her technique on the whole area of imposter syndrome. AJ, welcome.
Thank you, Joyce. It's lovely to be here.
All right. So tell us about this imposter syndrome. What is it? How do we get it? And how do we deal
How
with
do we
it?
get it and how do we get out of it? Uh,
Exactly.
yes. So imposter syndrome is an interesting thing because we use the term a lot. We say, "Oh, I felt like such an imposter in whatever situation. I can't go on stage. I don't like to speak because I always feel like such an imposter." But it's not just about getting on stage, even though I think that is probably the most frequently cited moment that people tend to feel like an imposter. Imposter syndrome really has three main characteristics. The first is that you feel like you are a fraud. You don't feel like you deserve the things that you have gotten in life, whatever those are, whether it's being on the stage, getting the promotion, getting a new job, having amazing things happen to you in whatever aspect, writing a book and having it go well, any of those things, you feel like you are a fraud. The next thing is that you feel like you have only gotten where you are through luck. It's not due to any skill on your part. It's not due to your hard work. It is, I was in the right place at the right time. They didn't have any other good applicants, and so they had to choose me. Those kinds of things. And then finally, it is this belief that not only am I a fraud, not only did I only get here by luck, but they, whoever they are going to figure it out and they are going to take away this thing. It's rough.
Yeah, so you're pretty much sitting on pins and needles.
Uh-huh.
worried that at any moment you're going to lose all that you've accomplished and you're going to be
Mhm.
found out. So it's almost
Yeah.
like a criminal who is waiting to be caught.
Kind of, yeah.
That's
You've cheated the
stressful.
system to get where you are.
You know,
Mhm.
that is stressful.
Mhm.
So how do people, what do you teach your clients to see that helps them to get over this situation?
So, I don't really believe that we can get over our imposter feelings. Imposter feelings come from decades, for many of us, of societal and parental and media influence telling us what we deserve and what we don't deserve, what rooms we deserve to be in, what rooms we shouldn't be in, all of that kind of messaging. So I don't really talk about imposter syndrome as something that we can totally overcome. What I talk about it as is a it's really a protective mechanism that we develop in order to keep ourselves from feeling shame.
Mm,
And so when I talk to clients and audiences about how to handle our imposter feelings, I talk about learning how to meet your imposter monster,
mm,
which might sound a little bit silly, but if we take a moment and we go into ourselves and we really look at why we are feeling like an imposter in certain situations,
mm,
and we kind of personify it as a monster, what we can do is start to develop a relationship with this part of us that is showing up to protect us.
I
And
see.
once we understand why they're there and we have a little bit of a relationship with them, we can turn it from, ooh, I feel like an imposter, I need to run away,
Hmm.
to, ooh, I feel like an imposter. What is my subconscious trying to protect me from right now? And how do I handle this so that I can still go out there and be awesome, even though I'm having some kind of a reaction to the situation that I'm in?
Hmm. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that because I think that's the clarity. I think when you go through and explain exactly what it is and the anxiety that one can be
Mhm.
feeling and the sense of I'm going to be found out and this is not me, I don't belong here, and that is a lot of needless anxiety and stress we can be carrying, which is a resilient sucker.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is, as you work with clients, right? You've been doing a lot of work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and developing some science and technology around, in the future science and technology environment, helping them to understand the whole DEI and imposter. And we'll talk a little bit about your book coming up because that is exciting. But tell me before that, what is it that you're seeing as the biggest challenge for that? Because here we are, it's Black History Month,
It is
and
Black History Month.
and yet we're seeing some different things happening in the media that you start to wonder, how long do we stay in that place, and does that have any connection to it? Like, how do people navigate this very trying times that we're living in?
Oh, well, that's a question that will take more time than we have today to answer, I
Two
think.
things.
As far as imposter syndrome goes, I think taking the time to really understand what are your triggers? What are the moments where you walk into a room and you don't feel like you should be there?
Hmm.
As far as Black History Month goes, for a lot of Black professionals, that's walking into a room and maybe they're the only Black person in the room. They're the only Black woman in the room.
Hmm.
They just don't see themselves in the space that they've been invited into or that they're trying to get into. And so,
Mm.
how do you prepare yourself for walking into that space so that you can still show up as the amazing professional that you are? That's where that resilience comes in, right?
Yes, and I hear you say
Mhm.
that. And as a Black person, that has been my entire life. I live in
Mhm.
central Canada. So,
Yeah.
and I started a business 28 years ago. And so I would go into workplaces and I am the only person. I'm in networking meetings. I'm in everywhere. I've been the only Black person, and I never really connected with the imposter syndrome. I just thought that I was forging a pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And though I'm the only one here now, I'm sure others will come along. Never felt that I was unworthy or shouldn't doesn't belong, and I think that may have some different internalization and personal self, self-esteem and so forth, and sense
Sure.
of self-value. It's nothing that I have personally struggled with the imposter syndrome. There, I think where I may have encountered some imposter syndrome, but it's not even encounter, because I didn't have the anxiety that I was going to be found out. It's always like, how do I market my business and sell my business, because I'm not a salesperson. And it was so
Mm-hmm.
funny when I took
Totally.
sales course, and they're like, Joyce, yeah, you're a salesperson. That's the first thing you do. So I had to do the switch around
Mm-hmm.
to identify myself as a salesperson, as a marketing person who operates a business. And I think that is a mind switch that
Yeah.
I had to do. So for someone who is listening to this and they're like, I am stuck in imposter syndrome, I think that that mind switch might be a way to help them navigate that, and not necessarily thinking that I don't belong, but is asking, what mindsets do I need to have to
Absolutely.
operate in this place? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a joke. I remember starting becoming a member of the Chamber of Commerce in
Uh-huh.
Winnipeg, in the city where I live. And that was like 29 years ago. Went into the chamber luncheon, and everybody in the room was a white male wearing black suits and black shirt, white
Oh, no.
shirt and tie. And here I am standing at the back thinking, what the hell planet am I on? I am not even seeing another female in the room, much less one of
Uh,
color. But I just never bothered about them. I just went in, made myself, and some wouldn't talk. I mean, some people are so isolated. They've never really had connection or opportunity to contact with people of
mm-hmm.
color. And so that's so weird. The word came out of my mouth, people of color. And with someone from a different race or identity, and they're so uncomfortable and
Yes.
so don't know what to say, how to behave. There is that they're suffering from that anxiety of, I don't know what to say, so I just won't say anything. I don't want to say the
Mm-hmm.
wrong thing. I don't know, I'm uncomfortable. But the discomfort lives inside them. It is their
Yes.
discomfort, not yours. So I've
Yes.
learned a long time not to take that onto myself, and to tell my children, this is not your issue, that's their issue.
Yes.
Just be yourself, know who you are, stand in your presence and in your authority and what you know, and then just let things happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who are always um unsure, and they're navigating that, and some people would have weathered that situation a lot differently. I know I may have a unique vision on it, but I think I'm hearing so much about this imposter syndrome. When I started my business 20 years ago, nobody talked about this word. So when did
Mm-mm.
it start becoming a thing?
Well, so the first research was actually done in 1978. So we've
Okay.
been talking about it for quite some time.
Okay.
Um, I want to, so you made 2 points, and can I just go back a little bit?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the one is you talked about struggling with this identity of being a marketer. And that is a really great kind of story about how imposter syndrome might look differently. Right. And
Hmm.
so at the base of it, it really is about a difference in how you perceive your own competence and what you perceive competence to actually mean or to require in that situation. So, for many of us who start businesses, we're looking at it and we're saying, I have this awesome skill set that I want to get out into the world. And then all of a sudden we're asked to market, and you're like, I'm not a marketer. And there's that gap. And so
Hmm.
that's where that identity difference our beliefs about what our competence means is where the imposter syndrome lies.
Mhm.
The other thing is that, you know, we talk a lot about Black History Month being a celebration of Black people, which is absolutely amazing. And I think for those of us who are white, we look at it and we're like, what do we do during Black History Month? How do
Mhm.
I contribute as a white person? And so, within the context of imposter syndrome, just because that's what we're talking about today, uh, I want to say to the white folks out there, take a moment and look at the surroundings in your workplace. What about the space that you are creating might cause someone to have that disconnect and feel like an imposter when they are around you?
Mm, mm,
Can you ask different interview questions? Can you um, maybe recommend that your Chamber of Commerce meetings be a little less formal so that everybody doesn't show up in the black suit or whatever it is, so that someone who enters into that room doesn't automatically feel like they don't belong there and they have to figure out how to wedge themselves into that space.
mhm. I think it's as always been when it comes to race and diversity and people of diverse backgrounds, the responsibility has always been on us to
Mhm.
find our way. It's only recently that more work is being done. I mean, there's always been allyship, even for the slavery to be ended, there had to have been allyship. So there
Mhm.
was always allyship, but I think it's become more mainstream now and more talked about in workplaces and more identity for individuals to start seeing themselves as an ally.
Mhm.
And when I speak and teach in that realm, it's looking at the different stages of allyship. And
Mhm.
even in there, people can find, feel like an imposter. Oh, I
Totally.
don't, maybe I made a comment once about a black person or a person of different orientation, and maybe that makes me unqualified. Actually, that mistake is what makes you qualified because you
Yes.
know how terrible it feels
Yeah.
to take advantage or to be discriminatory, even if you didn't mean it or whether you meant it or not, but you saw the pain and you've encountered, and now you should have a passion to say, hey, I did that, it didn't work, it wasn't healthy, let's not do that. And I think that's where most people struggle because they feel
Yes.
some guilt, some shame, some embarrassment. And you talk about shame, and shame is such a big, big subject. We could talk about shame for years and years and years because there are things we do when we're driven by shame, and shame takes so much energy
So
and
much
mental
energy.
space in your brain, right?
Mhm.
And that is a way that's the when we talk about the currency of resilience, we remind people of the things that they're doing that's draining their energy, taking
Mhm.
so much energy away from their ability, because we come here with a little pocket of energy, and we have to decide how we're going to use it for the lifespan that we have. And when we waste it on the things that are not important, like being cruel to others, being mean, being discriminatory, not
Feeling
liking
shame.
ourselves, because it starts with a self sense of dislike, sense of distrust, sense of
Mhm.
not feeling that you're empowered, that makes you want to disempower others, and that can lead to even the imposter syndrome, right? That
Yes.
could come from people feeling their own lack, and so pass that on to others.
Absolutely. Yes to everything you just said.
Okay, so you have a book coming out. Tell us about your book. I
Yeah,
love
so
the
it's actually been
title.
out for a little bit at this point, but my book is
Okay.
called My Monster Mungo, and it is an illustrated book for adults about imposter syndrome. So I very intentionally designed it to be a little bit playful and to
Mhm,
be just a little bit lighter reading. I think often when we talk about, especially business books, right, they're always like 150 to 200 words and they say the
mhm,
same thing over and over again. And, you get three nuggets out of the entire thing. And it's really intense. And it's usually just stories about white men doing whatever they're going to do. And it's just not amazing, right? So, I very intentionally wrote a diverse cast of characters exploring what their imposter experiences have been like
Hmm.
and how they can start to work with these imposter monsters in order to still be successful even in the face of these potential feelings of shame that they're encountering in their work life.
Hmm. That this is really good because when we talk about we help our listeners, like, understanding, being able to go through and understand exactly what the whole imposter syndrome is, and being able to assess, do you have some of those for themselves. So tell us about your story. What's your story with imposter syndrome, and how did you come to do this work? What brought you into this journey?
So I've always been interested in leadership and people. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I, worked with people with disabilities starting in middle school. So I've always really cared deeply about the well-being of people around me. And um and at the same time, I grew up in a working poor household, and where education was the thing. That was the way we were
Hmm.
going to get
Hmm.
out, right? Get your education, go to school, find a good job, all of those, the quote unquote American dream. And what happened for me though was that I got into the more white collar world, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this looks like, because this is not the world that I grew up in. I didn't have any role models who worked at a university or had master's degrees or anything like that. And so my early career is really rife with just deep imposter feelings for probably the first 5 years that I was in my career. It was really rough. I didn't know what to wear. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know, how to save money in the way that my colleagues were. All of those things were just different experiences than what I grew up with. So I kind of have always carried that with me as part of my professional story.
Hmm.
And a few years ago, I was chatting with my friend Katie, who actually is the main character of my book. She lent her face and her story to the book, and she was talking about a situation in a meeting. And she said, and da da da. She was talking about the meeting, and she said, and then my imposter monster showed up and kept talking. And so I let her finish her story. I asked her some good questions. We had a good conversation. I said, let's go back for a second. You mentioned your imposter monster. Tell me more. And so it turned out that she was one of the many people, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, didn't like the term imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome makes it sound like there's something wrong with you. And for the most part, it's not that. It's a defense mechanism that you have in order to survive in certain situations. That's not a syndrome. That's a, for most of us, a pretty healthy response.
Hmm.
And so she was like, I just started calling it my imposter monster because it rhymed and it was cute and it was better than syndrome. And so I explained to her, I said, Katie, this is actually brilliant because you're using something called parts work. You've identified a part of you that is showing up at certain situations, and you've started to develop a relationship with it, and it's made it easier. And she was like, I mean, I guess that's what I did, but I didn't know that was a thing. So 6 months later, when I started my business, I went back to Katie and I said, hey, can I run with this? Because this is actually really brilliant. There are other people who are talking about imposter monsters on the internet, but not talking about it in a compassionate way. Most of the time, if you look for information, unless you find me, people will talk about eradicating or exterminating or destroying your imposter monster.
Hmm.
But if you think about it as a part of yourself that's showing up to protect you, and you greet it with compassion, you're much more likely to be successful in developing a relationship with it that will allow you to move forward and do awesome things, even when you're feeling like a little bit of an imposter. So
Hmm.
that was kind of the growth from early career imposter feelings to, no, I really want to run with this, and I've been having a lot of fun with it for the last couple of years.
That's amazing, because I think of so many young ladies. So if you're listening here and you're a young lady, you are probably a teenager and you are maybe going to university or trying to find your voice. Many young women struggle with that. And I have a lot of mothers who are coming to me and saying, my daughter is struggling. They're
Hmm.
struggling with their size, their shape. They're struggling with what to eat. They're struggling with what to wear, how to comb their hair, how to show up, and even what profession to take, which particular subject should I get? Or I'm really brilliant in that area, but do I want to become
Hmm.
specialized in that? Even just specializing and stepping into their God-given authority to own what they've been called to do on the planet.
Hmm.
Many of them are shying away at that. Many of them are hiding, so they go
Hmm.
through life almost hiding, and we see it as overeating. They just let themselves become really, really bloated. They are wearing clothes that will camouflage, hide them. And we know sometimes it's a trauma response too, because we know people who've been molested or have some form of abuse, they don't want to be seen, they want to hide. And so there are many levels to this imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
and therapy might be a good solution for that. So tell us
Absolutely.
a little bit about when do you decide when a client needs to go to therapy versus coaching for imposter syndrome?
That's a fabulous question. And actually, that's a slide that I have in every presentation that I give about this. Uh, I am not a therapist. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, which is not therapy.
Mhm,
um, I am an executive coach. And so I focus on things we can do to move forward. And sometimes that requires touching a little bit on maybe a little bit of the trauma, a little bit of the past history. Why are you reacting this way?
mhm,
But when it gets to, um, you know, I I received this really harmful message for years that I was ugly and fat and not worthy, and um, and that my weight had anything to do with my worthiness, which we all know it doesn't.
mhm,
When it gets into troubles that require looking back and really processing and overcoming the things that are from your past that are impacting you now that are insurmountable,
mhm,
that's when I refer folks out to talk to a counselor.
mhm,
When it is, we're in the workplace and we're bumping up against something repeatedly, and we're bumping against the behavior in the workplace that's causing us to step back. That's
mhm,
a space that I can help someone with coaching.
mhm,
But when it gets into the past history and the trauma and those
mhm.
kinds of things, I can help at a very surface level, but I'm not the person who's going to really delve into that because that's not an appropriate
Yeah, that makes
thing for
perfect
me to
sense.
do.
Yeah, perfect sense.
Hmm.
Because coaching is for the conscious, not for the subconscious. So you're not
Exactly.
at that level of trauma
Hmm.
where it's buried in the subconscious, and that there are different stages of coaching, and we know that you can get to that place where you're in the conscious and you tip slightly into the
Hmm.
unconscious where it's manageable, but where it becomes
Yeah.
so deep in the subconscious, we always refer out to therapy and counseling. So that's standard for all ICF ethical coaches,
Yes.
especially for those of us who are credentialed. Um,
Hmm.
that's really important to reinforce in all our work and our conversations with client, because some people are very confused and they don't know when to get what kind of help. And I think
Hmm.
that is so important, because imposter syndrome can have such a wide range of reasons,
Yes.
and can impact people's lives so much. Some people can go through their entire life hiding. I know my mom suffered from, she could not hear properly in her ear, so she would hear the first, she would miss beginnings and ending of the communication, so she had to figure out what you were saying. And this is something she was born with and she lived with all her life. So as a result, she struggled with her self-esteem, she struggled with
Hmm.
depression, and she was
Hmm.
always feeling, so she would tend to hide, right? And that comes with the overeating, the excessive weight, and and just hiding, not wanting to go anywhere. Mom, we're gonna pick you up. No, okay, I'll come. Call you 5 minutes later. Oh, no, 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 I changed my mind. I'm not coming. That
Yeah,
fear of social interaction. Maybe they
totally.
will think I'm too big, or they'll watch my size, or something, or my hair isn't long enough, or always finding a reason to isolate, to stay away from people. And
Yes.
it really breaks my heart when I see young women struggling with that, and their parents, especially their mothers, walking around oblivious. There is one in my community. I almost want to beat her every weekend. I look at this mother and I'm like, your child is silently crying for help. And you are walking around like it's going to go away. I'm a Christian. I believe in praying for about things, but there are times where we need to do something, or we need to ask God to
Mhm.
show us what we don't know and who will help us, so we can get, because Satan wants to keep us in that situation. And if we don't fight against it and push forward, we're going to stay stuck in those situations. So those break my heart when I see those situations, because it's almost like these parents expect the world to fix themselves, and they don't realize that you slowly develop a pattern where after a while you can't control it anymore. It's out of your
Totally.
control and it takes on a life of its own.
Mhm.
So from my conflict lenses and my coaching lens, I was like, oh, you need to stop that. Don't go down that road. This is going to cause trouble. And some people are oblivious. They're like, oh, I'm just married, have a hobby. And so, yes, this is a topic we could talk on so much. I'm so grateful for you being here. So let's talk to somebody who's listening. You want to talk to, who's watching right now. What is the last word you want to say to them?
I want to say, the next time that you feel like an imposter, in the moment, take a deep breath, do what you can to calm down your nervous system.
Mhm.
Later, what I want you to do is to really take a moment and sit with yourself and understand why you felt like an imposter in that moment. And if you can go through the exercise of hearing that voice in your head, what did it sound like when it showed up and told you you were feeling like an imposter? And if you can envision that as a creature and
Mhm.
start to develop a relationship with them, that will help you work through it. And I think, Joyce, I gave you a link to a download. The download that I've provided for your listeners actually is top 5 questions to ask your imposter monsters. So it's a
Mhm.
great starting point to develop that relationship with your monster,
Mhm.
so that you can start to figure out how to work together to overcome those imposter moments rather than just running scared from the monster
Running
under your
away.
bed.
Absolutely. And if you don't
Hmm.
feel comfortable calling it a monster, it's just the imposter impact that you're
Yeah.
feeling. And recognizing it, acknowledge, you know what, this is a situation I'm experiencing right now, and I may not want to name it, but I want to address it so that it
Hmm.
no longer has control over me. Because that's what
Totally.
we want to be. I mean, that's the whole element, the whole focus of being resilient is that we manage our lives and we don't
Yes.
wait for things to happen to us. We are not accidents. We've been planned and put on this planet for a purpose. And we need to stop feeling like accidents and imposters, and we need to take ownership of our life, and we need to live and map out the life that we've been sent here to live
Yes.
in a meaningful and purposeful way. And anything that's stealing that away, including this whole imposter impact, then we want to say, nope, I'm going to take a look at you and I'm going to blew you away, because you're not going to steal my time and my resilience and my energy from being the person I was called to be. And that's what, if we stay true to that, I think that can help us through a lot of things. AJ, thank you so much for being here. And AJ has a link, so I will add that to the show notes. You'll be able to get the link for that, and you'll be able to go in and take those questions and get some tools to move you forward and help you out of this impactor syndrome that you're feeling.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, AJ, for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Joyce. It's been lovely.
Right. So, as you go back into your work and your life, I want you to remember that you are in control of your life. If you've heard anything in this episode by AG and I, please do share with your network, share with your connections, and anyone you know who's struggling, who's going through that identity crisis of who they are and who they shouldn't be, or have others in their life telling them who they should be or shouldn't be. We need to help them to be resilient by helping them to get the tools and the resources and the support to take ownership of of their lives. My name is Joyce Odidison. My guest today was AJ Laura, and I am so glad that you could join us here. And we'll see you for our next episode. Bye now.